Kyle Rittenhouse trial. And right now, those jurors, they are deliberating. It's their second day of deliberations on the 5 charges that Rittenhouse is facing for fatally shooting 2 people and severely injuring another. But while we await the outcome from the jury, we are learning essentially more forms of nonsense that have been going on with this trial and the benefits that Rittenhouse has been enjoying with, of course, special treatment courtesy of the judge. Now, in this instance, what we're talking about is the judge letting Rittenhouse handpick the folks who'd essentially decide his fate. The judge told Rittenhouse to blindly choose from the jury pool using a raffle tumbler. Check out this video.
We'll draw out 6 of the numbers.
Do you want me to leave them as is, Judge? Or
no, just separate them and. And the names which are drawn out will be the jury who will be dismissed.
Rittenhouse clearly got to play a part in his own justice of the justice system. And you know what, that may have looked pretty odd to you because it is odd. It's completely unheard of for a defendant to draw the numbers of alternate jurors. Usually the clerk of court would select the alternates. Let's see essentially what the Hill had to say when they wrote on this. Judge Bruce Schroeder instructed one of the defense attorneys essentially to put a pile of paper slips with the numbers of the 18 jurors, which he said had been exhibited to the defendant in the raffle drum. The bailiff, after spinning the drum, opened it to Rittenhouse and he selected 6 of the slips of paper one by one, eliminating those 6 and leaving 12 official jurors. Now, according to a reporter in the courtroom cited by the New York Times, the 6 jurors who were dismissed appear to be 3 white men and 3 white women. So that left a single person of color on the jury. 7 women, 5 men. They're now deliberating over the verdict. And this is just one of the multiple questionable actions from Judge Bruce Schroeder that really has led many to question his ability to fairly judge this case. I'd love to know, David, how does this sit with you?
It doesn't sit well at all. I mean, I was half expecting that when they called out some of those numbers, one of the jurors who was suddenly found out they were alternate was going to scream, bingo! I mean, this is silly. This is not a game. And Adrienne, I've covered a lot of federal court trials and some state trials. You've been involved in a lot more, but I've never heard of anything like this. I mean, maybe this is how they have an opportunity to do this in Wisconsin, and maybe the judge has some discretion in terms of how he determines sort of the random pick of who of the 18, which 6 are going to be alternates and which 12 actually go into deliberations. But this is just, it's bizarre. The idea that you would give the defendant who couldn't face up to life in prison, you're gonna give him the opportunity to stick his finger in there and draw out the whole thing was revolting on so many levels.
Exactly, there are 2 parties here. It's the state prosecution and Rittenhouse. The fact that Rittenhouse gets to choose kind of like what, it's some kind of election process and it's just fun, maybe playing bingo. Give me a break. The fact is that generally the clerk of court, a completely neutral party, is the one to choose in that lotto system. But no, it's like the judge essentially is treating Rittenhouse like more of a kid, like his kid, as opposed to doing his job. Like this is a photo here of the judge and Kyle Rittenhouse. And Rittenhouse is standing very close to the judge, really right over his shoulder during the trial proceedings. How often have you seen a defendant be able to get that close to a judge? This is absurd, David.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. I mean, there's just everything about this has been so bizarre and so weird. And I guess my question for you, Adrienne, because you're a lawyer, you got lots of experience in all sorts of different platforms and trials and whatnot. Aside from, and I assume that there's nothing appealable about how they randomly select which jurors are in and which are alternates, but it does go to a pattern. And I wonder if in the pattern of the odd behavior that you've seen from this judge, do you see any grounds for appeal or any grounds for mistrial, perhaps, because of specific actions, specific decisions, and the way the judge has handled all of this?
The problem is there are so limited circumstances or options that can be taken right now because the judge is essentially overseeing the entire case. So I doubt the judge is going to essentially turn on himself and say, I made a wrong decision. I've been completely partial toward the defendant. And so I'm going to declare a mistrial because I mucked this up. I doubt that's going to happen, unfortunately. But we do know that the thing is that the judge has ruled so often in Rittenhouse's favor that if Rittenhouse is convicted, his opportunities to have things to appeal about, the issues he can raise are few and far between because it's essentially you won on everything below, even to the extent that it was absolutely absurd. So what do you have to complain about? You got an almost an impartial or a partial trial that was in your favor and you still lost. But then again, it's the people who lose if he isn't convicted as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I'm with you. And the thing to me is, putting aside, the matters of facts and the law. Well, actually, facts are important here. The fact is, here was a teenager who crossed state lines with an AR-15. Now, regardless of what the law says about the specifics in this particular case and how the law may apply, I just think that society has an interest in trying to dissuade teenagers from showing up at protests with loaded AR-15s. The cops don't want them, parents don't want them, protesters don't want them. This kid, I mean, if he gets off on all of this, I think it almost opens the door to more copycats who are gonna say, okay, well, I can show up with my AR-15 the next time I see a protest I don't like. And if I feel threatened, then I can open fire. That's terrible. It's a terrible message to send to society.
No, it absolutely is. And you know what? The fact is, let's go ahead and continue this conversation when it comes to police officers. And as we know, Kyle Rittenhouse really wanted to be one.